Today, we'll be discussing the application process for Extra Help benefit. The Extra Help benefit is also known as the Low Income Subsidy. We refer to it as Extra Help because some people do not associate themselves as being low income, even though they may qualify for the benefit. The Extra Help benefit assists individuals with their drug cost, including help to pay for their deductible, help with their monthly premium, and help lowering their copays at the pharmacy. The copays vary by year. The current copayment amounts were discussed during the initial training. You will receive updates when changes occur. There are income and resource limits. The income and resource limit is 150% of the federal poverty guidelines. These limits vary each year, and we'll provide you with that information. We typically assist people with the Extra Help benefit when we determine that they are below the income and resource limit, and that they are paying too much for their medication. So, whenever we see they are below these guidelines, we usually suggest applying for the benefit, even if they aren't having problems with the cost of their medications. It still can be a help for them in the future. Some people choose to apply even if they are above the guidelines, and of course we offer to assist them with that. This video will outline the online and paper application process. First, let's look at the online application for Extra Help. This application is on Social Security's website at www.socialsecurity.gov/medicare/prescriptionhelp/. To save time, we've bookmarked it. This might be an option for you if you're helping individuals with the application on your computer. To begin the application process, click on the blue box with the text, "Apply for Extra Help with Medicare Prescription Drug Plan Costs." The next page explains the what, who, and how about Extra Help benefits. Feel free to read this on your own, but if not, click Apply Now on the bottom of the page. The next page explains what information you'll need and how the website operates. At the bottom of the page, click on the blue Next box to continue. These are the first series of questions. Are you assisting someone with this application? The answer would be yes. The next question asks if the individual got an application in the mail from us. Us means Social Security. Chances are likely that they did not, or if they did, it is misplaced, so you can check no. If they did get a paper application, put it aside for now. You may need it later if the online application doesn't process correctly. The next question asks if the individual has Medicare. The individual would need to have Medicare or be about to receive Medicare in order for you to assist them with this application. So the answer to this question would be yes. The next question asks if the individual is 64 years and 9 months or older. Answer no or yes. The following question asks if the individual or their spouse, if married and living together, has received disability benefits for 24 months based on Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, or renal dialysis treatments, or kidney transplant. Answer no or yes. The next question asks what state the individual lives in. Select Kentucky from the drop-down menu. The next question asks what the individual's marital status is. You need to choose the appropriate answer from the drop-down box. The next online question asks about their assets. You want to check the box that says no or not sure. If you check yes, it'll tell you that you do not qualify for this benefit, so no or not sure should always be checked, and Social Security can make that determination. Social Security lists information in this question about things you should not count towards their assets or resources. Click the blue Next box at the bottom to go to the next page of the application. If you didn't answer all the questions on the page, the website will display which questions you need to answer before moving on to the next part of the application. The next page explains what financial information you'll need in order to complete the application. If the individual doesn't have the documents, they can estimate so that they can complete the application. Click the blue Apply Now box to continue. The first part of this page is about you, the person completing the form, or if someone else is assisting with the application. You should fill in your name. Then you'll put in legal aid of the Bluegrass as an agency. Feel free to use our office phone number and office address so that you don't have to put your own personal address. The next part of the application is about the individual you're helping. Type in the client's first name, middle initial, and last name. If they have a junior or senior or any other suffix, such as Roman numerals, that would need to go on there as well. It needs to match what is on their Social Security card. Next, add their Social Security number and their date of birth. Then, ask if they have worked in the last 2 years. Check no or yes. If you check yes, the website will go to another question on a subsequent page, asking about their wages. If you check no, it will skip over those questions. Next, the application asks if the spouse also wants to apply. Typically with married couples, they do. Sometimes we actually hear situations where one spouse receives the benefit and the other doesn't. So in that case, the spouse wouldn't need to apply again. And you have already answered this question, so you can see this answer already carried over to the previous page and you can see the terminology. The following question asks if the client has a combined savings, investments, and real estate worth more than $27,250. Answer no or yes. The next question talks about the Medicare Savings Program. We are going to talk about the Medicare Savings Program application in another video. However, if you are assisting an individual with the Medicare Savings application, I suggest checking this box No, which will not send information to the state for them to do the Medicare Savings Program application. You are already doing it. Chances are it'll get processed faster with the application you are completing. Also, we worry about having more than one application in the system at the same time. Will things get confused? Might they get a denial letter for the duplicate and confuse them? So, if we are completing the application, check No, and do not send information to the state. Since we put on the previous page that the individual is married and living with their spouse, you would then put the spouse's information. You'll need to list the spouse's name, Social Security number, and date of birth, regardless of whether they want to apply or not, and whether the spouse worked in the current or previous year. The following section first asks if the applicant has changed their address in the last 3 months. Next, add the street address, city, select a state from the pull-down menu, and add the zip code and 10-digit phone number. There is an optional question which asks if the client wants SSA to contact someone else if they have additional questions. Sometimes the client may want SSA to speak with their power of attorney, or maybe the client has requested SSA speak with their son or daughter. If so, you would list that person's name and phone number. If the client doesn't want SSA to contact anyone else other than themselves, then you would not fill in that section and would go on to the next question. To continue, click the blue Next box. If the information you've entered doesn't match what Social Security has on file, it will not be processed, and you'll get a message stating there is an error. You may actually use the information that the client provided and still get errors saying there are problems. You'll have to ask them, does Social Security have a different date of birth on file? Or does your Social Security card or Medicare card have a suffix at the end, such as junior or senior? If none of those questions help resolve your issue, or you have tried 3 times to go to the next page, the Social Security website will remove you from the system, and you'll be unable to do an online extra help application for the client. Now let's review the paper application process. If you can't get the online form to work on your computer, you'll need to use the paper form. Also, if you are limited by not having all of an individual's specific information, the paper form is the best method. The paper application comes in a closed envelope. When you open it, there is a folder book format application and an envelope. You'll use the envelope to mail the application to Social Security. Note that it already has the correct postage. The first page of the booklet has a lot of information on it. We actually have older versions of the applications that Social Security provided to us. You may see some of the income or resource numbers are different. You'll be able to figure out what numbers you should be asking of the client, as we'll provide you with those later. We'd like to point out you must use only black ink on the paper application. Keep your number, letter, and X's inside the box. Use only capital letters. It is very particular. You have to use an X and not use a check mark or color in the box on yes or no questions. One of the pitfalls of the paper application is, unlike the online form, you cannot skip over irrelevant questions. You'll have to use your judgment to determine what you should complete or not complete. On the paper application, the first question asks for the applicant's first name, middle initial, and a last name, as well as the applicant's Social Security number and date of birth. Question 2 asks if they are married and living with a spouse. If the answer is yes, you should fill out the information for the spouse, whether the spouse is applying or not. You need to list the spouse's first name, middle initial, and last name, as well as their Social Security number and date of birth. The only time you would not fill this out is if they are not married or living with their spouse. Then, the questions ask if the spouse would also like to apply for extra help. You check yes or no. Question 3 is about resources. Once again, you can see these numbers are different because, again, this is an old application. Always refer to the most recent numbers that we have provided for you. You can check yes if you are doing the paper form, but it says here you are not eligible for extra help. It's not going to make much sense to submit it. If you check the box no or not sure, you continue completing the form. In question 4, Social Security tries to get an idea of the person's assets. You can see it is the combined total of all bank accounts. You are going to combine their checking account, savings account, and CDs for the first part of question 4. If they do not have any of these, you would put an X in none. On the second part of question 4, you would list any combined stocks, bonds, saving bonds, mutual funds, IRAs, or similar investments. If they do not have any of these, you would put an X in none. The last part of question 4 asks if they have any other cash at home or anywhere else. If they do not have money in that category, you would put an X in none. If they tell you there is nothing in their bank account, they don't have any stocks or bonds or anything, ask them if they have $1 in change in their couch, somewhere, anywhere. Just explain that you have to put down $1 or you cannot move forward on the application. In question 5, you are trying to understand if this individual will have to pay funeral or burial expenses out of any resources listed in question 4. The way we would like you to ask question 5 is, do you have a prepaid funeral or burial account that will pay for all of your burial expenses? If they do, then that's all paid for and none of their resources are going to have to pay for it. So then, you would put an X in no. None of this money is going to be used for funeral or burial expenses. For most people, they have not paid all of their funeral or burial expenses. Some people have a life insurance policy, but when you ask them, they don't think it will pay for all of their expenses. So in that case, you would leave this question blank, which is basically stating that yes, some of the resources listed in question 4 will be used to pay for funeral or burial expenses. Question 6 asks if they have any real estate besides their home and the property on which it is located. You can see on the paper application examples of other real estate that is separate from their home and the property in which it is located. If you have an adjoining lot, you can go ahead and say no. If they do own other property, you would say yes here. Social Security will possibly give the client or their contact person a call to try to get an estimate of the value of any additional property other than the client's homestead. Question 7 is often confusing. It is trying to understand how many people live in the household. The individual and the spouse are not counted in this number. If it is just the two of them, or just an individual, you would put an X in the none box. If they have a relative living in their household, receiving financial support from the applicant or from the applicant's spouse, you would count how many people there are. For instance, if they had a daughter and a granddaughter living with them who do not pay rent or utilities, you would put an X in the box under 2. The 2 are the daughter and the granddaughter. The couple would count as 0 because they are not other relatives, and that is what this question is trying to get at. If the applicant has a friend living with him or her, you would not count that friend because they are not a relative. Question 8 regards income. For all of our benefits, you always use gross income. If the individual tells you the amount that is deposited in their bank account, and they do not receive the Medicare Savings Program benefit, and they have Medicare, you would need to add the Medicare premium amount to the amount the client said was deposited each month. So again, you must use the gross amount, which is before deductions are withheld. A good way to find the gross amount of Social Security benefits is if the client has their Social Security award letter. The award letter will list the gross amount as well as all of the deductions. If the person is married and their spouse also receives Social Security benefits, you'll need to add their gross amount to the client's gross Social Security, since there is only one line on the paper application. If the client receives railroad retirement benefits or veterans benefits, list the gross amount for each of those. If they do not receive that benefit, put an X in the column that says none. So again, put in the gross amount that they receive for each of these categories. If the client receives any other type of income, such as alimony, net rental income, workers' compensation, private or state disability payments, or other payments, list the gross amount for this type of benefit. You must specify what the other income is on the blank line. These type of disability payments that are referred to as private or state disability payments are not Social Security disability benefits, and these type of income would go in the other income. Question 9 asks if any of the amounts included in Question 8 decreased during the last 2 years. So, if any of their income sources have decreased, you would put an X in the yes box. If they just receive Social Security, you would check no, because it has not decreased. The next statement talks about whether the client has worked in the last 2 years, or if they are married and living with their spouse, and either of them have worked in the last 2 years. They have to answer questions 10 to 14. If neither of them have worked in the past 2 years, you can skip to question 15. Most of the time, you'll not have to answer questions 10 through 14. Question 10 asks about wages in this calendar year. Sometimes people have retired in the year you are helping them, so just estimate the amount that it was in this year. If they retired the year before, you still need to complete the application. Question 11 asks what you expect your net earnings to be from self-employment. If you or your spouse are not self-employed, you would place an X in the box that says none and move on to question 12. If the client or their spouse is self-employed and has a net loss, you put an X in the box that applies to that person. If the client or their spouse has income from self-employment, you would list the net amount for the client or the net amount for the spouse. Question 12 asks if your wages or your self-employment earnings have decreased in the last 2 years. Put an X in either the yes or no box. Question 13 gives you an example of the years and may be different because of our older paper application. The online application will list the correct years. The question being asked is if you have stopped working in the last 2 years or plan to stop working this or the next year going forward. You need to list the month and year you plan to stop working. Question 14 is only for those who are younger than 65, or if the client is married and living with their spouse and either one is younger than 65. Otherwise, you would skip this question and go to question 15. This question is only for the individual who worked in the last 2 years. Question 14 is really only for the individuals who worked in the last 2 years and are under 65 or have a spouse that fits those requirements. This question tries to get at whether people have expenses that help them to work. You can see the examples of expenses that Social Security is asking whether you had to pay that enable you or your spouse to work. Question 15 is that question about the Medicare Savings Program. We discussed that earlier when referencing the online application. There is a signature page, but it is more than just a signature page. It is also their contact information on the paper application. So, be sure to complete this part. Have the client sign and date the application as well as list their phone number. A frequently missed question is the phone number because it is in an odd location. Complete the mailing address and put an X in the box if they have changed their mailing address within the last 3 months. If the client would prefer that Social Security contact someone other than them, they need to list that person's first and last name as well as a phone number. The next section is your information. You would put an X in the box that says agency. You would list your name and then list our office address and our office phone number. The last page of the application is information for them to read about the Privacy Act Paperwork Reduction Notice. This final page is the cover page that we mail or give to our client once the Extra Help application has been completed. This is what we send out whether you complete the online application or the paper application. If you submit the online application, you'll go ahead and print out a copy for them before you exit out of the website. If you are with them and can have them review the paper application with you, great. Otherwise, you'll need to send them the paper application and envelope along with this informational sheet. This just explains to them what the Extra Help benefit is and what they can expect with their processing. You'll want to put the date that you completed the application on the blank line. We'll provide you with copies of this letter. We want to make sure they understand that they should receive a letter from Social Security in 4 to 6 weeks, so they'll know how long they should be waiting. We have found that the online application process is faster than the paper application. That is another reason why we suggest at least trying the online application. It gives them a conservative estimate of how long to wait. We do request, if they are awarded Extra Help, that they call us so we can look over their drug coverage. If you are just doing an application, you're an application assistant. If you have not had the training to do drug plan comparisons, have them call us, and we would be more than happy to help them. Our number is 1-866-516-3051.